Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Doctor Who is a big show. No, it's bigger than that, it's large. For a show to last 60 years and broadcast over 870 episodes is a hugely significant milestone and an impressive feat. However, it does mean there are a lot of loose ends, plot threads which never get resolved on screen. There are numerous occasions of the show introducing a huge new villain or starting off a new storyline before never actually doing anything with it. And because I recently covered one of these cases in my review series, I was inspired to talk about more of them, because some of these unfinished threads are really interesting and it's such a shame that they're now forever resigned to the world of mere fanfiction and audience imagination. So, from interesting aliens to entire scrapped sequels, these are Doctor Who's forgotten plot threads. And beware spoilers for the following stories. Don't say I didn't warn you. Daniel Barton, Spyfall. Regardless of whether you like Series 12 or not, it's hard to deny it had ambition. This was clear from the beginning with a globe-trotting action-packed opening two-parter, Spyfall, which probably had too many things going on all at once to ever properly coexist with each other. The story had mysterious otherworldly beings called the Kasavin trying to take over modern-day Earth, while the Master pulls the strings from the background, trying to dispose of the Doctor and reign supreme in typical fashion. However, another major player of the story was Daniel Barton, the villainous tech CEO of the company Vor. Fun fact, this was actually a very subtle crossover with Sonic the Hedgehog. Look up Sonic Vor for more information. Barton was the initial big bad villain working with the Kasavin before the Master's reveal, and his storyline never really got resolved. Barton's plan was to turn humanity into hard drives, but the Doctor stopped him and he just ran away, never to be seen again. There's never been any follow-up on what happened to Barton, which is really strange when you consider how much of a big deal the two-parter made him out to be. The story even claimed he was only 93% human, having tested the Kasavin technology on himself. All the signs point to him being a much more significant piece of the puzzle. Maybe a character who could have come back during the Flux event to seek revenge against the Doctor and our allies, but he didn't, he just vanished into the ether. And with Elon Musk villainising himself on a near daily basis by this point, Daniel Barton is a pre-made satire waiting to happen. So it's baffling that he has yet to make a reappearance after escaping the first time around. The Chakri, the Power of Three. The 11th Doctor story, The Power of Three, is, for the most part, a fun romp seeing the Doctor trying to fit into normal day-to-day life with the Ponds and getting up to shenanigans. However, once the actual Doctor Who-ness kicks in, we discover that the mysterious black cubes appearing throughout the episode are actually weapons deployed by the evil Chakri, who are apparently a mythical race even the Time Lords fear. Despite the Cube Man hologram looking like a Star Trek reject, the Chakri are presented as a very big deal with a lot of power. They're even in a different dimension when they surround the Earth, giving them abilities beyond regular Doctor Who villains and opening up wormholes and stuff. However, for all the talk about the Chakri's reputation and their dedication to serve the Tally, we never actually get to see the Chakri in their original form, and we never get answers or even a real explanation. The Chakri are obsessed with the number 7 and seek to destroy humanity in service of the Tally. Something which the Doctor doesn't even know the meaning of. By the end of the episode, there are more questions than answers, and the mystery of the Chakri only deepens. But as of now, they haven't been revisited at all, and the Tally remains completely unknown. Given how important both things seem to be, it's baffling that this grander plot thread was never elaborated upon, especially since it seems like something Chibnall could have returned to with the Flux storyline. Perhaps the Chakri could have been involved with the Flux event, working alongside Time itself with Swarm and Azure. After all, the Chakri are a doomsday cult, and what's more of a doomsday than the Flux event? The Grand Serpent, Flux. Speaking of the Flux, Doctor Who Series 13 took the very bold step of telling one single story across the course of one 8-part story titled Flux. There were no standalone episodes, and instead it was like an 8-hour narrative with all sorts of smaller stories and characters intertwined. One of these was the villainous character Prentice, also known as the Grand Serpent. Flux built the Grand Serpent up as a big deal, due to his presence in Vinder's past and his involvement with the Sontaran threat. Usually a character like this would just be a regular human human villain, but the Grand Serpent is shown to have a literal serpent creature within him he uses to kill people, and he's also able to travel through time, manipulating UNIT throughout its history. Obviously the latter is probably because the Centauran allies have time travel capabilities, but the series never explains who he really is or why he can do all of this. By the end of the series, he's just left on a barren rock at the end of a portal, which means he's still out in the universe somewhere. Who was the Grand Serpent? What was his end goal? It seemed as though he was some kind of ruler of a huge outer space empire, so what happened to him and what was the deal with his serpent cult that tried stopping the Doctor's companions from making it back to the present day? There are so many questions left unanswered when it comes to this character, and it creates a big feeling of missed potential within Flux, because his storyline is never really fleshed out, let alone properly resolved. Gus, Mummy on the Orient Express. One of the most beloved episodes from Series 8, Mummy on the Orient Express tells a fascinating tale about a mysterious Egyptian mummy killing people one by one on board a train in space. It's an incredible story, but there are still lingering questions long after the episode ends. The biggest of these is the identity of the villain Gus, a computer on the train who manipulates the Doctor and other scientists into helping him discover what the Foretold actually is and how to stop it. Well, actually, he wants to weaponize the monster for his own means, which are never elaborated upon, but if I had to guess, I'd say he wants to use it as a hitman of sorts, because it's the perfect killer, invisible, untraceable, and only the victim can actually see it. So yeah, it would have been a good hitman. Gus is completely anonymous throughout the episode, and he matches the Doctor's own intellect, able to threaten and bend the Time Lord to his will. The whole episode builds Gus up as this really big and serious threat with almost unlimited power. He's always one step ahead, even filling the train with holograms to maintain the facade that it's a normal journey despite all of his background machinations. However, once the Doctor stops the Foretold, Gus tries to kill the occupants, and despite the Doctor saving everyone, we still never find out who Gus actually is. Even the Doctor can't hack the villain and discover the truth, which further heightens the reputation and intrigue of such a character. Unfortunately, despite all of this, we still have absolutely no idea who the mysterious villain was, why he planned all of this, or how he managed to evade the Doctor's vengeance. The episode did give some very subtle hints that the engineer Perkins might be more than he seems, although this was probably just a red herring for the start of the narrative, and he really was just a curious and inquisitive engineer. Even so, there's a lot of potential for Gus to return in some form down the line, finally tying up this loose end, especially because he knows the Doctor well enough to phone the TARDIS in Series 5 and block it off in this episode. So he definitely has a history with the Doctor. There are all the building blocks for an epic rematch, so hopefully one day we'll actually get an answer and find out who Gus was. And maybe we'll find out why he was so goddamn sus. The Valeyard. Doctor Who has been around for so long that there have been a number of incarnations without numbers. There's the War Doctor, the Fugitive Doctor, the Meta Crisis, and like a billion pre-Doctor incarnations, and then alternate universe ones as well. But perhaps the most interesting is the Valeyard, the main villain in Season 23's Trial of a Time Lord, which ended in the reveal that the Valeyard is actually an incarnation of the Doctor himself, somewhere between their 12th and final incarnation. Although, because of Time with the Doctor, that could now be any point between now and the heat death of the universe. However, despite being defeated by the 6th Doctor, the Valeyard managed to escape repercussions and disappear into the universe. Expanded media revisited the Valeyard a number of times, putting him on trial, pitting him against the 7th and 8th Doctors, and even having him play a role in the Time War, where he somewhat redeemed himself and embraced his nature as a Doctor, at least for a little while. But despite all of this, the Valeyard remains a hugely interesting character, with his origins still shrouded in mystery. We still don't know how exactly he came to exist, or whether he's actually the Doctor or not, although given how a genuinely evil incarnation of the Doctor would be like turning prime John Cena heel, I can't see them fully committing to that. But regardless, something as huge and definitive as the Valeyard seems like something the show needs to one day address, or at least revisit in some capacity. This is partially why it's so common to call pretty much every new character the Valeyard, because if they're not secretly the Master or the Rani, they have to be the Valeyard. I mean, come on, we all know how this works by now. Whatever they choose to do with the Valeyard is definitely a storyline that needs to be revisited in the show to tie up that huge loose end. Harmony Shoal, The Return of Dr. Mysterio. In the Christmas special, The Husbands of River Song, we were introduced to the Shoal of the Winter Harmony, a race of living brains who could take humanoid form and disguise themselves, much like the Slovene, but without all the farting. These villains appeared once again in the next episode, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, where they tried to take over modern-day Earth under the guise of the company Harmony Shoal. Naturally, they failed, as Doctor Who villains usually do. However, right at the end of the episode, as UNIT is storming the Harmony Shoal headquarters, it's revealed that one of the monsters was able to quickly take over the body of a UNIT soldier and escape undetected. This created the tantalizing idea of a sequel of some sort, showing UNIT being infiltrated by the Shoal of the Winter Harmony, hiding in plain sight and manipulating the organisation. However, as of 2023 so far, this has not been resolved or revisited in any capacity. Not even Big Finish have done anything with it, which is rare for them. It's a real shame that there isn't a follow-up of any kind, because it's such a great tease to end the episode. It definitely feels like there's a brilliant story there just waiting to be told one day if a writer decides to pursue it. Jenny, the Doctor's daughter. When Doctor Who was at its peak popularity during Series 4, the episode The Doctor's Daughter changed everything by introducing a DNA clone of the Doctor dubbed Jenny, who, yes, was literally played by the 5th Doctor's daughter, who herself is now married to David Tennant, because people still love to bring that up despite it being Doctor Who's equivalent of Viggo Mortensen breaking his toe kicking a helmet in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, at the end of The Doctor's Daughter, Jenny dies by taking a bullet for the Doctor, with the protagonist concluding that she can't regenerate like the Doctor himself can, because she's just a Gallifreyan, not an actual Time Lord. However, in a surprise twist after the Doctor leaves, Jenny's life force is restored by the terraforming tool known as the Source. She goes flying off into the universe and we never see her again. Not on TV at least. She has made a number of appearances in expanded media, meeting the 5th Doctor in audio and the 12th Doctor in comics, along with having her own Big Finish spin-off, although so does everyone these days. But in terms of the TV universe, Jenny has yet to make a reappearance, leading to her ending in The Doctor's Daughter being a bit of a loose end fans still wonder about to this day. Because, let's face it, Big Finish is very niche, so barely anyone knows about her stuff there. So a proper reunion in the show is long overdue, finally providing a much needed resolution to her survival. Actor Georgia Tennant seems to have returned to acting on a regular basis, and with the returns of Russell T Davies and David Tennant, it's very possible Jenny could make a return to the show too. Although considering Georgia and David have been married for like 12 years now, their chemistry would probably make it a bit awkward for them to play the Doctor and his clone daughter. Would that be incest or self-cest? Sleep No More. Despite being a very polarising episode, Series 9 Sleep No More actually had a very interesting premise. This found footage episode was all about a mind virus of some sort which can pass to others through subliminal messaging. We watched the adventure through this found footage lens, seeing the Doctor seemingly defeat the villains, although his last words are about how none of it makes any sense at all. This all culminates in the fantastic fourth wall breaking twist ending of the villain Rasmussen revealing that he compiled all of this footage and hid the signal throughout, in order to infect the viewers by getting them invested in the adventure and giving us all the virus. It's clear that there was more to this story than met the eye, no pun intended, so it makes a lot of sense that writer Mark Gatiss planned to revisit the storyline in Series 10, seeing the 12th Doctor discover the same Morpheus experiments taking place thousands of years before the events of Sleep No More. I feel like this would have fleshed out the concept a lot more and added a lot to the premise, especially with the villainous Sandmen, who fans didn't really care about. However, when Gatiss found out that Moffat and therefore himself would be leaving the show after Series 10, he instead wrote Empress of Mars as his final contribution to the show. This leaves the Sleep No More sequel as a big what-if moment in Doctor Who's history, especially given that the Series 9 episode implies that the Morpheus pods are very common throughout the universe, so this sleep dust virus would be a very serious threat, ripe for another story, as the Doctor seeks to stop it for good. However, since Sleep No More is pretty much hated across the board, I doubt we'll ever see an official follow-up, which is a real shame. So, that's just a few of Doctor Who's loose ends. Whether it's characters or full storylines, the show and its universe is simply too big to keep everything neat and fleshed out. Of course, even spin-offs have their own loose threads, such as Rex from Torchwood, but that's a story for another time. It's hard to blame writers for not continuing all of these stories or writing sequels, but it is a shame because a lot of them are so fascinating. It feels like a missed opportunity. There's a wealth of narrative potential with some of these ideas, such as the Sleep No More sequel and the return of Harmony Shoal, which I'm surprised isn't something Big Finish have done yet in their Unit series. Considering how many unnecessary sequels and prequels expanded media has done, it's my hope that maybe one day all of these questions might be answered in some capacity. But for now, they remain huge what ifs for the show. So let me know what you think and how you might continue these stories, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. And an extra special thank you to my Bantam level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Platinum level patrons Maximilian Foreman and Nick's Games, and all my Gold level patrons Boots, Calvin, Daniel Shillito, Francois aka Line Vortex, Herna Verzog, Tom Azar, and Tifa Simp. Thank you so much for your support.